Hello, friends. If you want to be a part of this thrilling journey with us, make sure to subscribe to the channel and press the bell icon so that you receive our stories first. As soon as the news of the dead body was received, the in charge of Sipat police station in Bilaspur district, Gr Bagal, reached the spot with his team. Upon arrival, Baghel saw that the body of a young woman was lying near the pond, almost naked. Close to the body there was a bucket, soap, and some clothes. It was easy to assume that the deceased had come to bathe in the pond early in the morning when she was murdered. The woman appeared to be around 30 to 32 years old. There were deep wounds on her head, and her face was also crushed. A heavy stone with bloodstains was found near the body, suggesting that her head and face were smashed with it. Her face was so disfigured that identifying her was nearly impossible. Despite this, after observing the body and the belongings, the villagers present at the scene speculated that the body could belong to Neha Kashyap. One of the villagers conveyed this assumption to Baghel and pointed towards a man standing nearby, stating that he was Neha's brother-in-law, elder brother of her husband, Rajendra. Since he was a close family member, he would be the best person to identify the body. Baghel immediately called the man over. "Your name is Rajendra Kashyap?" "Yes, sir," Rajendra responded. "The villagers suspect that this body belongs to your family member Neha," Baghel said, looking directly into his eyes. "Take a close look and tell us if this is Neha or not." Rajendra replied, "Sir, Neha is my younger brother's wife, which means she is my sister-in-law. According to our traditions, it is considered a grave sin for a brother-in-law to look at his sister-in-law's face. That is why I've never seen Neha's face. So how can I identify this body, especially in this condition?" Baghel was stunned by this response. He couldn't believe that such traditions still existed in this modern era. Further investigation revealed that Neha had been missing since early morning, and none of her other family members had arrived at the scene. So Baghel summoned all the members of the Kashyap family to the pond. Upon their arrival, including Neha's husband, Jitendra, they all identified the body as Neha's. The family informed the police that Neha had left for the pond around 4 to 4:30 a.m. to bathe but never returned. Now, they realized she had been murdered there itself. Before the identification process was even completed, senior police officials, including SP Abhishek Meena, ASP City OP Sharma, and CSP Kotwali Vishwadeep Tripathi, arrived at the scene after receiving information via PCR. They were accompanied by a forensic team and a sniffer dog. However, neither the forensic experts nor the dog could find any leads on the murderer. Upon closely inspecting the body, the officials ordered a search of Neha's clothes lying near the pond. A mobile phone was found in them. When examined, it was confirmed to be Neha's phone. Checking the call records revealed that Neha had spoken to someone named Sanjay on March 12, 2019. When Baghel inquired about Sanjay among the villagers, they revealed that his full name was Sanjay Maravi, a young man from the same village. One of the villagers also mentioned that Neha and Sanjay were rumored to have had a romantic relationship. The same villager pointed towards a man standing alone under a tree, saying, "Sir, that man standing separately over there is Sanjay Maravi." The fact that Sanjay was standing away from the crowd carried several implications. Noticing this, Baghel himself approached him. "Is your name Sanjay?" "Yes, sir. Why are you standing away from the crowd?" "So that you take notice of it," Sanjay responded. Baghel carefully observed his facial expressions. When observed carefully, it was found that he was fearless. After staring at him for a while, a question was asked without any preamble. "Did you talk to Neha last night?" "Yes, I did. What did you talk about?" "We hadn't met for several days, so we talked on the phone and made a plan. Neha would come to the pond at 4:30 in the morning under the pretense of taking a bath. We would meet in the bushes near the pond, and after that, she would return home after bathing." Sanjay revealed the truth fearlessly. "Was this the first time you both planned such a meeting, or had you done this before?" Baghel asked, while looking straight into Sanjay's eyes. "We had done this many times before, sir." "All right, tell me, did Neha come at 4:30 in the morning?" "Yes, she did. Sanjay's throat went dry. That's why she was murdered. Did you kill her?" "No, I didn't." "He did," Sanjay said, pointing towards a person standing in the crowd. Baghel was shocked when he saw him. It was Rajendra Kashyap, Neha's brother-in-law. The same Rajendra who had once declared that even looking at his sister-in-law's face was a sin was now being accused of her murder by Sanjay. Baghel immediately informed his superiors about the situation. Following the orders from higher authorities, Baghel took Rajendra into custody and sent him to the police station. Sanjay was also not allowed to go anywhere and was kept under police watch. After completing the legal formalities at the crime scene, the police sent Neha's body for post-mortem. Later, at the station, they interrogated Sanjay and Rajendra separately. During the investigation, a shocking story of a love triangle emerged between a brother-in-law, his sister-in-law, and her lover. Rajendra wanted to be the hero of Neha's heart, but ended up as the villain instead. This incident took place in Basaha village, under the jurisdiction of Seapot police station in Bilaspur district of Chhattisgarh. The Kashyap brothers, Rajendra the elder one and Jitendra the younger, lived in this village. They had divided their ancestral land by mutual agreement, and even their house was split into two parts. Rajendra lived in one part, while Jitendra occupied the other. Despite being biological brothers, they were very different from each other. Rajendra was physically strong and intelligent, whereas Jitendra, though physically fine, was mentally weak. In other words, he was born with a cognitive disability. Rajendra managed his land on his own, but Jitendra was incapable of doing so. As a result, he leased out his share of the land. To bring stability to Jitendra's life, their family arranged his marriage with Neha. When Neha arrived as a bride, her beauty became the talk of the entire village. No one had expected a mentally challenged man like Jitendra to marry such a stunning woman. On their wedding night, despite his mental limitations, Jitendra was aware of the intimate relationship between a husband and wife. Using this knowledge, he made the wedding night memorable for both himself and Neha. He knew how to initiate and conclude the act, though he was unaware that newlyweds often experience intense passion. Jitendra too might have had such desires within him, but due to his limited intelligence, he didn't recognize them. That night, he lifted Neha's veil, embraced her, consummated their marriage, and then turned away and fell asleep. This continued for the following nights. For Neha, physical intimacy was a passionate storm. She wanted to be swept away by it and take her husband along with her. But Jitendra neither understood her seductive eyes nor grasped her body language. For him, physical relations were merely a customary act. Once performed, he wouldn't think about it for weeks. A mentally challenged husband with no interest in romance, Neha grew frustrated. She began thinking seriously about her present and future. The most significant thought that crossed her mind was that instead of suffocating in a marriage with Jitendra, it would be better to return to her parental home and seek a divorce. However, she had to abandon that idea because Neha's parental home was not in a condition where she could seek refuge there, nor could her parents arrange her remarriage. After realizing this, another thought occurred to Neha. If living with Jitendra was her destiny, she would have to arrange for her own needs. However, Neha's needs were more emotional than physical. She longed for someone who could understand her feelings and caress her emotions with love. As for physical intimacy, when two young hearts full of desires meet in solitude, intimacy is inevitable. The question was how to quench the thirst of her heart and find a true companion for her body. Neha's eyes began searching for a suitable person who could fulfill both needs efficiently. Within a few days, Sanjay caught Neha's attention. Sanjay Maravi was from the same village and was Jitendra's childhood friend. Due to Jitendra's slow intellect, most of his friends had distanced themselves from him, but Sanjay had continued to maintain their friendship. He would often visit Jitendra's house, and during these visits, he started interacting with Neha. Whenever Sanjay saw Neha, he would think, "She is a queen of beauty, full of passion, while Jitendra is slow-witted. How could he possibly satisfy her? How could he touch her heart and soul?" These thoughts convinced Sanjay that Jitendra was incapable of handling Neha's youthful desires. He assumed that Neha must be longing for physical fulfillment. In his mind, such women were never truly loyal to their husbands. He believed that if Neha had not left Jitendra yet, she would eventually seek a connection elsewhere. A young, beautiful woman longing for intimacy attracts attention, and Sanjay was no exception. Even though Neha was married, he found himself drawn to her. His desires grew stronger when he noticed Neha reciprocating his gaze. Sanjay convinced himself that Neha wanted the same thing he did, that she wanted to form a connection with him. He saw nothing wrong with it. Being Jitendra's closest friend, he considered himself entitled to Neha before anyone else. At first, their communication was through glances. Then words filled with hidden desires followed. In subtle ways, Sanjay began expressing his feelings to Neha, and she understood his hints well. She too responded with her own silent signals. Encouraged by this, one day, Sanjay finally asked, "Neha, tell me the truth, does Jitendra really love you?" Neha knew that Sanjay would ask this question someday, so she was prepared with an answer. She lowered her gaze in a display of feminine modesty and softly replied, "He does, but not as much as he should. He does only what he knows, nothing beyond that. After all, he is slow-witted." Seizing the moment, Sanjay placed his hand gently on Neha's shoulder and pressed it lightly. He whispered, "If you want, I can turn that little into a lot." Neha lifted her gaze to meet Sanjay's eyes, then lowered them again. But she did not remove his hand from her shoulder. Her body language made it clear she was willing to establish this connection. Sanjay was the kind of man who was always ready for intimacy. For him, time, place, or circumstances did not matter. If a beautiful woman was available, he would take his chance. And so, he did with Neha. Neha had been waiting for Sanjay to make the first move so she could surrender into his arms. When Sanjay embraced her, it didn't take long for them to become physically intimate. In their very first encounter, Sanjay not only satisfied Neha's body, but also touched her heart. Naturally, she became infatuated with him. Though she remained Jitendra's wife in name, she started fulfilling her marital desires with Sanjay. Everything was going smoothly, except for one problem: finding a place to meet in secret. Sanjay couldn't bring Neha to his home because his wife lived there. Neha couldn't invite Sanjay to her house because Jitendra rarely went out. Whether day or night, he spent most of his time lying around at home. After much thought, Neha and Sanjay found a solution. A year after marriage, Neha had stopped renting out farmland because Jitendra wasn't getting much profit from it. Instead, she started overseeing laborers herself. To protect herself from the sun, rain, and cold, she had built a small thatched hut in the field for rest. When Neha was at the farm and no other farmers were around, she would call Sanjay. As soon as he arrived, she would take him inside the hut and lock the door. Inside, there was a cot with a mattress and a clay pot filled with water. In a way, the hut had everything they needed. Neha would lock the door, wrap her arms around Sanjay, and they would indulge in their passion without any worries. Jitendra's field was adjacent to Rajendra's field. The two fields had once been one, but were separated after a partition. Rajendra had noticed Sanjay frequently visiting Jitendra's farm. He had also seen him exiting the hut, locking the door behind him and walking quickly toward the village. It didn't take long for Rajendra to understand what was happening inside that hut. There were already doubts about Jitendra's masculinity, and Rajendra was quite certain that Jitendra could not satisfy Neha. Now his suspicions were confirmed. Neha's beauty tempted Rajendra, and he thought that if Neha ever wavered in disappointment with her dull-minded husband, he would present himself as an option. The matter would remain within the family, and he would continue to enjoy Neha's youthful charm. However, instead of giving Rajendra a chance, Neha had chosen Sanjay as her secret partner. Now, Rajendra had to catch them red-handed and execute his plan. He started keeping an eye on the secluded hut and one day finally caught Neha and Sanjay in a compromising situation. Rajendra was not an outsider, he was Neha's brother-in-law. Seeing him enter the hut, Sanjay panicked, grabbed his underwear and pants, and fled half-naked. Neha, on the other hand, stood frozen in shock, momentarily forgetting that she was undressed. As she noticed Rajendra's eyes scanning her body, she quickly grabbed a sari and covered herself. She fell to his feet, pleading, "Brother-in-law, I made a mistake. Please forgive me. I will never have an illicit relationship with Sanjay again." But Rajendra acted as if he hadn't heard her. He thought this was a golden opportunity that he wouldn't get again. Advancing toward her, he grabbed Neha in his arms and said, "There is no need to apologize, Neha. Jitendra is slow-witted, and I know he cannot keep you happy. Your only mistake was seeking happiness elsewhere. If only you had hinted, I would have fulfilled your every desire." Realizing Rajendra's intentions, Neha struggled to free herself from his grip. She cried, pleaded, and reminded him of their sacred familial bond, but Rajendra refused to listen. He used force and even threatened her, saying that if she didn't agree to be with him, he would publicly disgrace her and inform Jitendra. Neha was trapped. She couldn't resist too much, so she was forced to surrender to Rajendra. From that day on, Rajendra often summoned Neha to the secluded hut to satisfy his desires. Neha had no choice but to comply, though she never accepted him wholeheartedly. How could she? Her heart belonged to Sanjay. Rajendra warned Neha to break all ties with Sanjay, threatening to kill him if he ever caught them together again. Fearing for Sanjay's life, Neha told him about Rajendra's threat. The two then devised a plan to meet secretly at the village pond before dawn. Late at night, they would coordinate over the phone, and before dawn, Neha would pretend to go for a bath while Sanjay would meet her there. The pond was surrounded by tall, dense bushes, and at 4 a.m. it was still dark. No one came there at that hour, so they would safely meet and enjoy their moments together before Neha returned home after bathing. On the night of March 12, 2019, Neha and Sanjay planned to meet at the pond at 4 a.m. Unfortunately, Rajendra overheard their conversation. He wanted exclusive control over Neha and could not tolerate Sanjay's presence in her life. Determined to teach Sanjay a lesson, he decided to put an end to their affair permanently. On March 13th, around 4 a.m., Neha left the house with her bathing essentials. Rajendra, lying in wait, let her leave first and followed 15 minutes later. He carried an iron rod in his hands, assuming that Neha and Sanjay would be hiding in the bushes. Quietly, he searched the area around the pond. The dawn was breaking, making visibility better, but it was still dark enough for him to move undetected. Soon, his eyes fell upon Neha and Sanjay hidden in the bushes. Both were lost in each other's embrace. Sanjay was passionately holding Neha, moving swiftly against her. The very body Rajendra thought he owned was writhing in another man's arms. Rage filled his eyes, and his grip tightened around the iron rod. Lifting it high above his head, he aimed for Sanjay's skull. Just then, fate played a cruel trick. At that exact moment, Neha shifted positions, climbing atop Sanjay to take control of their passionate act. She often did this when she was overwhelmed with desire. That morning she did the same, completely unaware that death was looming over her. As she moved on top, the iron rod came crashing down, not on Sanjay but on Neha's head. Blood gushed out as her skull split open. Rajendra froze, shocked at what had just happened. He had come to kill Sanjay, but instead Neha had taken the blow. Taking advantage of Rajendra's momentary shock, Sanjay grabbed his clothes and fled. Neha, severely wounded, lay motionless. Realizing that if she survived, she would have him arrested, Rajendra decided to finish the job. He struck her head with the iron rod 2 or 3 more times before picking up a heavy stone and smashing her face beyond recognition. Satisfied that she was dead, Rajendra returned home. He was confident that Sanjay, fearing disgrace, would never reveal the truth. By 8 a.m., the village was abuzz with news of Neha's murder. A crowd gathered at the pond, and a terrified Sanjay eventually reached the crime scene. Unable to hold back, he confessed everything to the police. Based on Rajendra's statement, the police recovered the iron rod used in the crime. With his confession, they arrested him under IPC Sections 302, murder, and 201, destruction of evidence, and sent him to court, where he was later imprisoned. Friends, if you liked the story, please like the video, comment, and subscribe to the channel. Thank you.